scripture reading this morning comes from Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Paul writes, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercy of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. May God add his blessing to the reading of this word. Now, I don't normally follow politics very closely, but there was a story that popped up a week or two ago that I couldn't help but notice. It concerned Senator Dan Coates, who was being appointed to the position of National Intelligence Director. The National Intelligence Director, so he had to go up before the Senate for a hearing, as folks in that level have to do, and it happened to be the very committee on the Senate on which he had served. You may have heard this story. It was very interesting because of that fact. All of the senators knew him very well there. So it was a very easy confirmation hearing for him, and that made it an interesting story. All these senators from both sides of the aisle knew him well. They all seemed to respect him. But there was one criticism of him. And this is what popped up to me. This is the one thing that I found very interesting about this story. The one criticism that came from both sides of the aisle was that he was too nice for the job. He was too nice for the job. Again, from both sides of the aisle, we heard this from his colleagues, from senators, who would say, as a kind of an interesting criticism, they would say, Senator, you are one of the nicest, kindest, most affable men I know, and frankly, I don't want to have somebody nice and kind and affable as Director of National Intelligence with 9 organizations reporting to you. I want someone crusty and mean and tough. Well, on behalf of the nice people in this world, I took offense. I do not hold myself up in many ways, but I have always felt myself to be a nice person. And the fact that niceness could disqualify you from any job, any honorable job that I can think of, took me aback a bit. But I have to say, I kind of accidentally stumbled upon something that shows that maybe this is more of an issue than I thought in this world, because I couldn't remember Dan Coates' name. I couldn't remember what position he was up for. So I had to get on the internet and I Googled, I figured this would do it, too nice. Too nice. And I Googled that phrase, and I was surprised by the top hits were stories or websites that included these titles. 11 signs that you are too nice and what to do about it. 9 bad things that happen when you are too nice. 5 ways being too nice can hurt you. And of course, this is Google, so it went on and on and on from there. Apparently, I was in the dark on this particular issue, that being nice is a problem today that we have to deal with. Well, first of all, want to take a moment just to take issue with the idea that a nice person cannot do a job that demands toughness. Because I know from being here for 12 years, from getting to know many of you as well as I do, that some of the toughest people I know are also among the nicest. These are the people here at the church who busy themselves with the work of the church and who are willing, even though they are nice, somehow manage to hold others accountable, which is a tough job. It's not easy to do, and I think that's kind of what the senators were getting at when they were criticizing it. Was he going to be able to hold people accountable, do that tough job, if being as nice as he is? And of course, I have seen nice people absolutely do that tough work. I have seen that nice folks are often very good at facing up to reality at seeing things as they are, at identifying problems, and that's tough to do. And you have to be tough in order to do that, because it's so easy to look at things as you want them to be instead of as they actually are. And I know that nice people, and many of the nice people here, are willing and able to do that, to face up to reality, and then also are able and willing to make the tough call. I don't like this idea at all that there are some jobs that are just too tough for nice people to do. That somehow, as the senator said, they require crusty, mean, tough, angry people. Maybe not hateful, but getting close there. You know, bordering on being hateful. Could be hateful. We're not really sure. Well, in my experience, and again, I am no senator, but in my experience, the angry people in this world are usually the scared people. The angry people are the scared people, scared of letting people in, scared of being vulnerable, scared of change in this world, and so they become angry. Now, I have seen enough folks here at the church, I have gotten to know enough people in my life to know that the nice people can be tough and can do the tough jobs. There's one man I remember in particular in my life. He actually just passed away this last week, so he's been on my mind. His name was Freddie Jones, and he actually gave me my first job out of college. He was the vice president of human resources at All Saints Hospital in Fort Worth, Texas. And he was one of the nicest men I ever met. But you were in trouble if you were with him and you thought he wasn't tough. He was a tough boss. As nice as he could be, but definitely held people accountable, saw things as they were, willing to make the tough call. I remember one time I happened to be present when one of his colleagues, another vice president, yelled at one of his employees, one of the people under his, and then you knew Freddie was tough. He was a tough guy. And he showed me right there at the beginning of my career that you could be nice and be tough. He ended up as president of that organization. So he was extremely successful in his career and one of the nicest men you would ever want to meet. And if that is not enough, examples of those here in the church, people you have known, people in your life that have come into your mind right now that you have known that are nice, yes, but tough also, if that doesn't convince you to think of Jesus Christ. Nice, yes. Tough, absolutely. Willing to do those difficult things and say those difficult things, even in the midst of this loving and kind heart and spirit that he had and that he has. Well, you can understand this, though. This desire for mean and toughness, crustiness, as the senator said, because, as the senator would say, this is a crusty world. This can be a mean place. This can be an angry place. It can be a hateful place in this world. And you know what happens in this world is this world wants all of us to conform to it. If we are in our hearts, or if someone is in their hearts angry and upset and mean, then they get suspicious of those who are not. They want us all to conform to that. And if it's true that this world is becoming an angrier place, a meaner place to be, then it's natural that this world is going to want us all to conform to it. And that's a problem for us Christians. That is a problem because we are not called to be angry. Anger is okay, righteous anger. But to be angry all the time, to be mean all the time or any time, to be hateful to anyone, that is not what we are called to. And so we must resist this call, this insistence by so many that we conform to this world, that we be like everyone else, or else be held in suspicion. It's too nice. I don't trust that guy. I've heard that too. That's always a stranger to me. I don't trust that guy. He's too nice. What an odd thing to say. Well, the Apostle Paul knew this well. He understood this about being a Christian and being a part of a church. He understood this about the world, that the world does call on us to conform to its values. And if we do not, we are held in suspicion because of that. Again, from the reading today, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the thinking of your mind. Be transformed by the thinking of your mind so that you can know and discern the will of God and that you can be good and acceptable and perfect. Or to use another translation, don't let this world around you squeeze you into its own mold. I like that. Don't let the world squeeze you into its own mold. And that's exactly what the world tries to do to us, to conform us in this way. And so, how do we do this? Well, first of all, let me say that there are good things about conforming. Conforming is often very good. I learned this when I was in the choir at seminary. At Brighton Divinity School, if you joined the choir, which took about an hour a week of your time, you received 1/2 of 1 credit. And so, if you did it for all 3 years, that was 1 class you didn't have to take. I thought this was a great deal. I enjoy singing, so I joined the choir, and we were by far the motliest, worst choir I have ever not only been a part of, but ever experienced in any way in my life. We did not conform to one another. Not only in tone, not only were we dissonant, but we were often completely on the wrong measures from each other. I remember one time we sang a song about the 23rd Psalm, and while the sopranos were off in the valley of the shadow of death, we tenors were still back in the green pastures. And that's exactly the way that it was. Conformity is good. There are things that, conformity is one thing that makes us one people, right? We are conformed in some of our beliefs here, and that's why we're here today. Our nation, there are some things all of us believe. All of us believe this. Now think of that. There's a lot of things we don't have in common and we disagree about, but I think and I hope that Americans agree about something as important as, let's say, what I am practicing right now, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. We are going to conform in that way. And if you don't like that, if you aren't interested in free speech and experiencing a culture where the speech is free, maybe this isn't the place for you. Because that is a high value for us. And there are many ways that we conform in just this same way. Values we all hold. And not all hold as a group, but not everybody in the world holds. The things that draw us together, that bring us together, and they are important. But the question then becomes, well, then where do we draw the line in our conformity? We conform in ways that are good and positive, but other ways we need to back off, perhaps, from this world. Not conform, especially when it's presenting us with values that are contrary to our faith. Values that are contrary to what Jesus Christ showed us and told us over and over and over again. Now, the most obvious place, and frankly the place that we preachers love to pick on, is our entertainment. Now, this is a real question to me, and I don't necessarily have a good answer for this. Where do we Christians draw the line in what entertainment we enjoy in our lives? Is there some line that we draw? Are there some things that instead of lifting us up are dragging us down? Are there some things that we, as individual Christians, shouldn't be using as entertainment? Well, we think of all that we have that is being offered to us and wonder if all of it is worthwhile. For instance, movies and shows where people are being deliberately mean to each other. They are insulting each other. They are lying to each other. They are backbiting each other. Is this a good thing for Christians to watch and to be a part of? Other shows, like some of the crime dramas that I enjoy, and these are the shows I like to watch, they seem to not only be crime dramas solving the mystery, but they seem to revel, absolutely revel in the suffering of the victims of those crimes and all the gory details of the crime. Is that something we should be watching? Where do we draw the line? I watched, on Friday, I went to the movies, went and saw Logan, and a superhero movie. And I thought it was wonderful. I loved it. And really, actually, I thought it had some nice messages there about redemption and other things. But it was extremely violent. Is that something that I should be watching? Is that something I should be using as entertainment in my life? I'm not sure. And I think it's probably different for each of us as maybe thinking about it in this way. Is this lifting me up or is it dragging me down? Is this entertainment lifting me up or is it dragging me down? And I think that is different for each of us. And maybe that's something we could take as a guide, maybe something that can open our eyes. And there may actually be something in your life you use as entertainment that you don't realize that when you get done watching it, you feel worse than when you started. So if that's the case, maybe it's something worth taking out of your entertainment. You want things that will lift you up, things that will make you feel better. So there's one example, but how do we do it in general in this world? If this is an angry world, if it is at times a mean and crusty world, then what do we do? How do we handle that as Christians? And there are two very good options for us. I mean, definite possibilities. Christians have absolutely tried both of these. I will give you the first, which is the one I favor least. And actually, both of these are a bit like sculpting. Sculpting a good life, sculpting the kind of life Christ wants for us. There's two ways to sculpt, right? You get a big block of stone, you cut away everything that shouldn't be there. And the other way is you get something like clay and you build it up into a sculpture. You weld it together, maybe, with metal. So you can either build up or you can cut away. The first is to cut away things in our lives that aren't things that drag us down. Things that do not help us. And then we can get really, we go really crazy on this if we choose to. I mean, if we're worried about the entertainment that we watch and we're not certain until we watch it, well, let's just quit going to movies. Let's just quit watching any TV shows produced in the last 20 years, or certainly the last couple of years. Let's cut out the news. Let's cut out the social media. Let's cut out maybe some of the family members and friends that drive us crazy and make us angry. And let's step back from them as well. And certainly when we talk, we can't talk about anything that's difficult or anything we may disagree about, because that's going to make us angry. And yes, we could really try to cut ourselves off, try to insulate ourselves from all the things in this world that may make us conform to this world that is so often angry. It's been tried. That's actually a big part of, in the old days, and I guess still today, but not as much today. You know, in the old days, you became a monk or a nun, and you were sequestered away, right? You were away in a monastery. Today, the folks in these orders are normally out in the world. They sort of made a big switch on that a couple hundred years ago. We're going to be out in the world instead. And but in the old days, it was old trick. If you want to be good, you have to get away from the world. You have to get away. My alma mater, TCU, was founded in 1873, and it was founded actually, it's in Fort Worth now, but it was founded in a little town south of Fort Worth. And part of their advertising, or advertising the parents to send their kids there a long time ago, said, send your kids to TCU. It is 40 miles away from any known form of sin. And of course, what was true in that day was true in my day as well. The teachers, the people there found out that the students tend to bring the sin with them when they come to school. But now, it is easy to come up with a strategy, just to cut everything out. Cut that out of my life, and cut out the good with the bad, right? Because there's going to be good with it too, right? Social media is an example. Most of it's great, but then there's the negative, the things that draw you down. Cut it all out, then you don't have the good parts that are there. It reminds me of the story of a lady who called the animal control one day because she had a skunk in her basement. She wasn't sure how it got there, but there it was, and she called them, and they said, oh, well, that's easy. All you have to do is open up the basement door, get a trail of food from the basement out into your garden, wait an hour, and the skunk will be gone. And of course, what happens? Now there are two skunks in the basement because I follow the trail in. So as you see, our best laid plans for cutting these negative things out of our lives can often backfire on us because it's going to find its way in. If it's out there in the world, it will find its way into our lives in some form. Instead of cutting things away, how about building things up? We think for a moment about what we are for. What are we in favor of? What, in opposition to the things negative that we see in this world, do we want to hold in our hearts? Do we want to show to the world? And of course, we do this by lifting up Jesus Christ in our lives. By lifting up Jesus Christ. Jesus said, I will be lifted, and I will draw all men to me. And that's what we do. We lift up Christ in our hearts. We remember Christ's ministry. We think about all that Christ had done. We think about all he said about God's love and neighbors and who our neighbor is and all of these things. And as we lift Christ up in our hearts, then all of the negative, all of the bad, all of the things about this world that we find so objectionable have a harder time getting in. It's like a block to them. And then there's another advantage to it, of course, is as you do this, then you become a light in this world. You become a source of warmth in this world. You become a source of peace in this world. I like the little story I read somewhere about an author who was at a little regional airport, tiny little place. And when a plane was ready to take off at night, all they would do is someone would go over and throw a switch. And it would light up the runway with like 2 bulbs. I mean, you could see just a sort of a little tiny strip of light going down the runway. And that was it. That's all the plane got. But you know, that was all that was required. The plane would taxi down, follow that strip of light, take off, go into the air, and then someone would go over and shut the light back off again. See, that's one thing Jesus does for us. One thing he has already done for us. Through his life, through his ministry, what we know of his teachings. Through all of this, we are given the way to start in this world. Jesus gets us off to a good start. So how do we live clean in a dirty world? How do we keep our peace in an angry world? Well, we begin with Jesus Christ. We carry Jesus Christ every step along the way, and we know that Christ goes with us to the very end and beyond. And so we conform instead of to this world, we conform to him. And yes, we let his love and his peace and his toughness too. We let it guide us every day so that we will be a beacon to this world that needs the light of Jesus Christ. Let us bow in prayer. Loving God, we do ask that you go with us every day. Lord, guard us from all the things in this world that want to knock at the door of our life, that want to drag us down. Loving God, help us to keep our hearts so full of your Spirit, so full of your love, there is no room for all the negative that's in this world that wants us to conform to it. Loving God, we do ask that you walk with us each and every day. It is in Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. My friends, if you were